The room I had stumbled into wasn't just any room. It was filled with old computers and monitors, their screens dark but still intact. Rusted filing cabinets lined the walls, and papers were scattered across the floor, yellowed with age. My curiosity got the better of me, and I approached one of the computers, brushing the dust off the keyboard. To my surprise, the machine still powered on, a faint hum coming from the hard drive as the screen flickered to life. The monitor displayed an old, grainy menu, and I navigated through the files, my heart pounding again. Not from fear this time, but from the sense that I might find something important, something that could help me. I clicked on a folder marked Experiments, and a series of video files appeared. My fingers hovered over the keys, unsure if I really wanted to see what was on those tapes, but something told me I needed to know. I opened the first video, and the screen filled with static before showing a dimly lit room, similar to the one I was in. Several men in military uniforms were gathered around a table, and on that table was one of the creatures, the same kind that had been hunting me. Its body was strapped down, its limbs twitching violently as it struggled against its restraints. One of the men was speaking, his voice low and distorted, explaining how they had discovered these creatures deep underground, something about failed genetic experiments gone horribly wrong. As the video continued, I watched in horror as they experimented on the creature, injecting it with strange fluids, exposing it to different stimuli. The creature screamed, thrashing about, its body warping and twisting in response to the experiments. It was clear these things had been bred to kill, to hunt. My stomach turned, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I clicked on the next video, my hands shaking. This one showed the creatures being released into the bunker, hunting down test subjects who had been trapped inside. I saw men running through the same hallways I had just fled, their screams echoing through the bunker as the creatures ripped them apart. My throat tightened as I realized that these experiments had never been meant to end. The bunker was a giant cage, and I was just another rat in the maze. Then, I saw something that made my heart leap. In the final video, one of the researchers was standing in front of a map of the bunker, pointing to a hidden passage, an escape route that led to the surface. I leaned closer, my pulse racing as I memorized the map, my mind piecing together the layout. The passage was located in one of the lower levels, just past a series of storage rooms. It was my only chance. Couldn't believe it. There was a way out. I quickly grabbed a piece of paper from the floor and scribbled down the details of the map, stuffing it into my pocket. My mind was racing as I shut down the computer, my breath coming in short, quick bursts. I could escape. I could survive this nightmare, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. The lower levels of the bunker were where the creatures were most active, and I would have to navigate through their territory without breaking any of the rules. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. I wasn't going to die down here. I gathered my things, making sure my flashlight was still working and that my pack was secure. Slowly, I opened the door to the hallway, the cold air hitting my face as I stepped back into the darkness. The faint echoes of the creature's movements still lingered in the distance, but I forced myself to focus. I had a plan now. I had hope, and I wasn't going to let them catch me. With one last glance at the control room, I turned and headed deeper into the bunker, determined to find the escape route and get out before the creatures found me first. I moved cautiously, the dim light from my flashlight barely cutting through the oppressive darkness of the bunker's corridors. Every step I took seemed louder than the last, and my senses were heightened, my ears straining to catch the faintest hint of movement from the creatures lurking nearby. I clutched the piece of paper with the escape route in one hand, glancing down at it whenever I reached a corner or another intersection in the maze of hallways. The lower levels weren't far, but getting there felt like navigating a labyrinth, each turn leading me deeper into the heart of the nightmare. The walls seemed to close in around me, the air thick with the stench of decay and something more foul, like rotten meat left out too long. My breathing was shallow as I crept along, every shadow looking like it could hide one of those grotesque creatures, waiting to pounce. I could hear them, always just out of sight, scratching, shifting, their guttural growls reverberating through the walls. At every corner, I stopped and listened, my heart racing each time I heard movement that seemed too close. The rules kept playing over and over in my head, a constant reminder that one wrong move could be the end of me. I knew I couldn't make noise, couldn't run unless they were actively chasing me. I couldn't risk leaving any lights on for too long, and I kept my flashlight aimed low, trying to avoid drawing their attention. Rule 3 was especially vivid in my mind: don't ever turn your back on one of them if you see it. The thought of coming face to face with one of those monsters filled me with dread, but I had to be prepared. I couldn't let fear paralyze me now. I reached a set of stairs leading down to the lower levels, my flashlight flickering slightly as I descended into the darkness. The walls were more corroded down here, covered in rust and grime, and the air was even more stifling, almost suffocating. I could hear water dripping from somewhere in the distance, the occasional echo of metal creaking or shifting. My mind raced with memories of the videos I had watched, images of those experiments flashing through my thoughts. I wondered how many people had been trapped down here before me, how many had tried and failed to escape. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, the floor below me seemed slick, as if covered in something sticky. I shined the light down and recoiled. It was blood, a thick, dark pool of it, seeping out from under a nearby door. My stomach churned, but I forced myself to keep moving. There was no time to waste. I had to keep going. I followed the directions from the map, navigating past several storage rooms, each one more decrepit than the last. Some doors were left wide open, revealing rusted shelves and broken equipment, while others were sealed shut, their locks corroded with age. I ignored them, focusing on the path ahead. But then I heard it. Just ahead, the unmistakable sound of claws scraping against metal. My blood ran cold. One of them was close, too close. I crouched low, turning off my flashlight and pressing myself against the wall, my breath shallow as I peered down the corridor. The shadows shifted, and there it was, one of the creatures, just ahead, its lanky form moving in that unnatural, jerking way as it sniffed the air, searching for any signs of prey. I could see its distorted face, its hollow eyes scanning the darkness, its body twisted and contorted, the result of those horrific experiments. It was pacing slowly, its claws tapping against the metal floor, as if waiting for something to move, to make a sound. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest I feared it would hear me. I stayed perfectly still, my back pressed against the cold, damp wall, barely daring to breathe. My eyes stayed locked on the creature, not daring to blink. It was following the hallway, its steps slow and deliberate, but I knew I couldn't turn my back on it. I had to wait until it passed. Minutes felt like hours as the creature finally slinked further down the hallway, disappearing around the corner. I exhaled shakily, my entire body trembling from the close encounter. But I couldn't relax. I had to keep moving, had to stay focused. I turned my flashlight back on, careful to aim it low, and continued forward, my steps silent. I reached a door at the end of the corridor, the one from the map that was supposed to lead to the hidden passageway. But when I pushed on it, it wouldn't budge. My pulse quickened in panic as I tried again, shoving my shoulder against it. The door was rusted shut. My mind raced, thinking back to the rules. I couldn't make too much noise, couldn't let the creatures hear me. But I had no choice. I took a deep breath and gave the door one final, hard push, and with a loud creak, it gave way, swinging open. I winced at the noise, glancing behind me to make sure nothing had heard. The hallway remained still, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. I slipped through the doorway, finding myself in a small, dimly lit room filled with old monitors and equipment. Another control room, but this one seemed more intact. I closed the door behind me, my hands shaking. The room was eerie, lit only by the soft glow of the monitors. I quickly scanned the room, looking for any signs of what the researchers had left behind. I approached the monitors, seeing that some of them were still functioning, displaying live feeds from different parts of the bunker. I saw empty hallways, some of them covered in blood, others with old military equipment scattered about. But then one of the feeds caught my eye, a hallway, not far from where I was, with something moving in the shadows. My heart skipped a beat as I realized it was one of the creatures, prowling the area I had just come from. I couldn't stay here. I had to move fast. I scanned the room for anything useful and found an old drawer filled with maps, one of which seemed to detail the ventilation system of the bunker. My eyes lit up as I realized this could be my way out. If I could reach the vent system, I could crawl through to the surface. I quickly grabbed the map, stuffing it into my pack. I was about to leave when one of the monitors flickered, showing a new feed, a room with what looked like a vault door at the end of a long corridor. My heart raced as I recognized it from the video earlier. That was the escape route. I memorized the path, my mind racing with the realization that I was close. I wasn't far from the exit now. I just had to get through one last stretch of the bunker, and I'd be free. But I knew the creatures would be waiting, lurking in the shadows, and I'd have to follow every rule perfectly if I wanted to survive. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew would be the most dangerous part of the journey. I memorized the route from the monitor. The narrow hallway leading to the vault door was only a few rooms away, but every step would have to be calculated, precise. I couldn't make any mistakes now, not with freedom so close. My hands shook as I adjusted my grip on the flashlight, the dim beam barely cutting through the thick shadows that clung to the bunker's decaying walls. I opened the door cautiously, peeking into the hallway. It was eerily quiet, too quiet, but I couldn't let that lull me into a false sense of security. The creatures could be anywhere, moving silently in the dark. I kept the rules repeating in my head like a mantra, making sure I wouldn't forget a single one. No unnecessary noise. Don't run unless they're chasing. Don't leave lights on. Most of all, if I see one, don't turn my back. I crept forward, keeping my steps slow and deliberate, my flashlight trained low to avoid drawing too much attention. The hallway twisted ahead, each turn revealing more rusted doors and broken equipment, the air thick with decay. I passed one room, catching a glimpse of a mangled skeleton slumped in the corner, and my stomach churned at the thought of how many had perished here before me. But I couldn't stop. Couldn't let fear paralyze me now. My heart pounded in my chest as I reached the next corner, and then I saw it, the long corridor leading to the vault door, just like in the video. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived, as my flashlight flickered violently, sputtering in my hand. I smacked it once, twice, praying it wouldn't die on me, and then I heard it, a low, guttural growl from somewhere behind me. My blood froze. Slowly, I turned my head, not daring to make any sudden moves. And there it was, one of the creatures, its emaciated, twisted body hunched in the shadows at the far end of the hallway. Its hollow, glassy eyes locked onto mine, and I swallowed hard, remembering the rule. Couldn't turn my back, couldn't look away. It started moving, its body jerking and contorting in that horrifying way, its long claws scraping the ground as it came closer, slowly at first, as if testing me. My heart raced, but I forced myself to stand still, facing it. I kept the flashlight steady, the faint beam illuminating its grotesque face, twisted in a macabre semblance of a grin. It sniffed the air, inching closer, as if trying to provoke me, to make me panic and run. But I held my ground, backing up slowly toward the vault door, never turning my back. It was only a few feet away now, and I could see every horrifying detail of its deformed face. The exposed teeth, the sunken eyes, the thin, sagging skin. I could feel its hunger, its malice, and I knew that if I slipped up now, I wouldn't make it out of here alive. The door was so close. I could feel the cold metal of the handle at my back, but I couldn't turn around. Not yet. The creature stopped, its head twitching to the side, as if assessing me, its eyes narrowing. For a terrifying moment, I thought it might lunge, but then, without warning, it slunk back into the shadows, retreating into the darkness from which it had come. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, my whole body trembling with adrenaline. Slowly, carefully, I reached behind me and twisted the handle of the vault door. It groaned in protest as I pushed it open, the heavy metal scraping against the floor. I stepped inside, and for the first time in what felt like hours, I allowed myself to relax. The room beyond was small, empty save for a few dusty crates and a set of old controls on the far wall. The air was stale, but it didn't have the same suffocating stench of the lower levels. I closed the vault door behind me, locking it with a heavy lever. For a moment, I stood there in the quiet, letting the tension drain from my body. But I wasn't out yet. I crossed the room to the control panel and flipped a few switches, praying the power was still functional. The lights flickered weakly, and then a soft hum filled the air. A small screen on the panel lit up, displaying a series of numbers and a timer. I frowned, studying the controls. This had to be the final part of the escape, but the instructions weren't clear. I scanned the panel, trying to decipher the old military jargon, when suddenly the timer started counting down. 10 minutes. My pulse quickened. I hadn't triggered this, had I? I turned back to the vault door, my heart racing. The countdown ticked away, and I realized with a sinking feeling that I had to get out before it hit 0. I frantically searched the room, my eyes darting to the far side where a small hatch was partially concealed behind one of the crates. My escape. I rushed over, yanking the crate out of the way and pulling open the hatch. It led into a narrow tunnel, barely wide enough for me to squeeze through. I didn't have time to hesitate. I climbed in, crawling through the cramped space, the walls pressing in around me as the sound of the countdown echoed behind me. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading upward, and I could feel fresh air filtering in from somewhere ahead. My muscles burned, my breath coming in ragged gasps as I pushed myself forward. The timer was still in my head, ticking down, faster and faster. Finally, I saw at the end of the tunnel a small opening that led to the surface. I crawled through, emerging into the cool night air, the bunker's entrance looming behind me. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath, the weight of everything that had happened crashing down on me. I had made it. I was alive. As I lay on the cold, hard ground, the weight of everything I had experienced in the bunker crashed down on me. The horrors of the creatures etched into my memory. I couldn't shake the feeling of their hollow eyes watching me, the grotesque forms twisting in the shadows, and the chilling rules that dictated my every move. I knew I had escaped the grasp of a nightmare that would haunt me for the rest of my life, yet a sense of unease lingered within me. I stumbled to my feet, my body trembling from exhaustion and adrenaline, and I realized I was free, but the bunker remained behind me, a dark, foreboding place that held secrets best left undisturbed. My mind raced with thoughts of how many others might venture inside, unknowingly walking into a death trap. I made a vow to return and expose the truth of what lay beneath, determined that the horrors I had faced would not be repeated, knowing that some darkness is never meant to see the light of day.